What's up everybody, today I want to talk about one of the best leveling builds for rogues in Season 3. Since the beginning of the release of Diablo 4, twisting blades and melee abilities have kind of been the meta, they've kind of been the most powerful version of rogue. But in Season 3 we've had a big change, there has been some really big buffs to some of the ranged abilities, and now we can play that like assassin archer playstyle, and it is so good. So one of the big buffs we had was a complete rework of how penetrating shot works. And to keep it simple, it's just a crit and damage increase if you hit more enemies. So this is perfect for leveling, as you'll just be going from pack to pack and you'll be cycling your imbuements, your poison and your shadow imbuement. So you'll be just ripping through everything on the screen. And the best part about this build is it's pretty much all codex aspects that you can just go and farm straight away. So the way this big bursty build works is we're empowering our powering shot as much as possible. So first we use 3 basic attacks to build our combo meter. Once this is done, you're ready for the big attack. Then you will imbue your weapon with either poison or shadow, and you can use concealment to go invisible if it's on cooldown, and then you burst. You burst out of the shadow with the big attack. It's boosted by concealment, boosted by the combo points, and it deals huge damage with either shadow or poison imbuement. If you don't destroy everything on the screen with one penetrating shot, just use a second one and you probably will. So let's talk about the aspects we need to make this build. Okay, so let's go through the aspects, and I've tried to make this purely with codex aspects because this is a leveling build, so you don't want to be hunting for legendaries and then changing your gear so often and losing them. So yeah, you can just go to dungeons, get the codex aspect and imprint them straight away. There are certain legendary ones that will make this a little stronger, but you can make the whole thing purely with codex. So let's go through it. Starting with the head, we've gone for the new one, the resistant assailants aspect. Breaking concealment grants you resistance to all elements. Killing an elite reduces concealment's cooldown. So this is it. Concealment is your big burst. You kind of go invisible, you get unstoppable, and then you burst out with big damage and make them vulnerable. So this is a really good one to have as a burst and utility. Then you want the trick shot. This is probably the core of the build. Trick shot is like the core. Whenever penetrating shot damages an enemy, 2 individual arrows split off in either side and they deal a certain amount of damage. So the reason this is so good is instead of it just being a blast on one target, it's a big massive AoE. So if you can sort of like zip through a pack, turn, shoot, you can just take them all out in one hit. So this is kind of the first one I'd probably go and hunt down. Then you've got this one here, the corrupt aspect. So your imbuement skill effects have increased potency against vulnerable enemies. And we've just mentioned here, we can make them vulnerable very easy. Then I would go for unstable imbuements. When casting an imbuement skill, you trigger an explosion around you, applying the imbuement effects, dealing damage of the same type. Then this one is really good, the rapid aspect. Basic attack skills gain 60%, well, a percent of increased attack speed. The reason this is so good is because a part of this build is building up our combo points. And while we're building up our combo points, we're not really doing big damage. So we sort of hit, penetrating shot, hit. So if we've got 60% attack speed while we do that, that's a game changer because you're just ramping up into the big damage faster. And then as he starts push, I would go for disobedience. This is pretty much, every build can be improved with this. It's just so nice. You gain a percent of armor for 4 seconds when you deal any sort of damage, stacking up to 60%, well, 66%. I don't want to go through a big list of legendary aspects to look for because it's a leveling build, but some ones that I've enjoyed using is the Toxic Alchemist. Your shadow imbued skills have a 75% chance to create an explosion that applies poison damage for 5 seconds. If they're already poisoned, increase this damage by a big percent. The reason this feels so good is because you can poison an enemy, like dart through them, poison them all, and then turn and then shadow hit them, and you trigger this, and it's just a massive extra burst of damage. So yeah, this feels really nice. It's a really nice one. I've also got the Pestilent. Every 3rd cast of Puncture is poison imbued, which means that as you're using your basic attack to build your combo meter, every 3 times you're also poisoning. So yeah, that helps trigger that as well. So there's some nice ones to go for. But yeah, you don't need these. But yeah, you don't need legendary aspects in this at all. They just give a nice little combo. There's loads of others I could go for, but they're the things I would be looking for on this leveling build. I'll also link down below a build guide, a Mobalytics build guide, where I'll have everything linked down there. So if you are looking for anything extra, it'll be on there. But this is the core, the base of the build, and it's all you need to worry about until World Tier 4. Okay, so let's talk about the skill tree and where you would put your points as you level up. So you'd start here with Puncture, and then you would go for Enhanced, and then you would take Fundamental. This is so that when you do this basic attack to trigger your your combo points, you can also make enemies vulnerable. So if you can hit them with 2 blades at once, you make them vulnerable, and we do a lot more damage when vulnerable with a lot of things we take here. So I would take this as our basic. As we go into the core, you want penetrating shot. You want a 5 out of 5 that straight away. Improved increases the damage per enemy hit, and then enhanced, which improves with crit chance. So I would start with that, and that's like your base. Build your combo, deal your damage. As you get down to here, I would take 1 point in dash. We literally use this as utility to dash through stuff. If you want to put more points into this, go for it. I personally just like to use it to dash, and I try not to use it with my imbuements. But if you want to play that way, go for it. Then this is really important, weapon mastery. There is no reason not to put 3 points in weapon mastery. It's a huge damage boost to vulnerable, damage boost. With every single weapon gives a damage boost, and you can get crit and vulnerable on here. So it's always a 3 out of 3 for me. Then as we get down to here, we just put 1 point into this for concealment. We don't really do that much with it, and if you put points into it, you just get a better cooldown. So I just put 1 point into this. Then you take enhanced, get 40 energy when you enter concealment. That's another penetrating shot. And then here, when you break concealment, makes enemies vulnerable. I would take that over this one. This one's good because we do burst crits, but we do a lot more with vulnerable. So I would take this here. Okay, then we get down to the imbuements. Now, if you want to do the imbuements differently, go for it. If you want to take cold instead of poison, cool. That's some people do. But I really like shadow and poison. So I would instantly 5 out of 5 shadow. And then I would take enhanced, increase crit strike against injured enemies. And then you've got mixed or you've got blended. Now, I think we have enough ways to make enemies vulnerable. So I would take mixed. Enemies inflicted, take 12% increased damage for 12 seconds. I think that's the better choice here because we can make them vulnerable in so many other ways. Then I would take a point in poison imbuement just so we have it on the bar early. Now, as we move down, we've unlocked this tree here. We don't actually touch it. So you don't have to worry about taking an ultimate, which means you can put more points into your imbuements. I would go and fill out the shadow stuff first. So I would take shadow damage with a 10% chance to stun to unlock this. Every time you kill an enemy with shadow, you generate 10 energy. Max that and you get 30. So as you burst a room with shadow imbuement, you get your energy back up so you can do more shots in the same room. So I think that's really important. Then I would start filling out your poison imbuement. If you choose to take hold instead, you can do that. Then you unlock your ultimate. Now, there's a few good ones here. Momentum is pretty good in this build. It's not bad. And close quarters combat is not bad because you do find yourself in that position a lot. But what I prefer is precision. When you cast a marksmanship skill, which is what penetrating shot is, you gain a stack of precision. You can gain an additional stack if that skill critically strikes. And we have a pretty good crit strikes in this build. When you reach 6 strikes of precision, your next marksmanship ultimate or core skill is a guaranteed crit strike and deals 50% increased crit strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, this is just massive damage. That's all you need to know. Like, we don't just hold down the right click like some builds. We build up to it. So this is kind of perfect for building up that big crit attack. So yeah, that's how I would do this. And then you go back up and you can start getting some more of the passives. So I would just work backwards really. You can take this one here. 5% increased energy generation while moving, and then this one here, while above 50% max energy, gain movement speed. This is a leveling build, so that's perfect. And while below, you gain attack speed, so that's good as well. Then I would move back up and I would get this, and then you can power up your poison. You deal increased poison damage. I just put 1 point in here, and then I would go for this. You gain 1% increased attack speed for each enemy you've poisoned. This is really good. There's even an argument here to drop this to 1 and just put the points in other passives, but I think it helps in the leveling. I think it helps having that extra damage burst. So you'd put 1 point in here, and then you would take this. 3% increased damage to vulnerable. You max it, it's 9. We get a lot of benefits here with vulnerable enemies. Okay, now I'd go into some damage reduction. Again, as I'm putting this to the end because it's a leveling build and you don't really need it as you're progressing in the levels. I'd literally max this 12% damage reduction against close enemies, and then lucky hit has a chance to heal. But yeah, that's how I plan the skill tree out. There's a lot of things you can change here. I think the big thing people might change things on is imbuement. You can definitely tweak this if you want, but yeah, this is how I would run it. Okay, let's talk about the specializations. It's quite an easy one. Inner sight isn't really worth it, and then preparation we don't use an ultimate, so there's no point in taking that one. So we take combo points, and the way that works is every time you use your basic skill, which is puncture, you generate 1 point. And then when you use your core skill, which is our penetrating shot, you use those points. So you want to build up and then burst. And this is a burst heavy build. If you go into your abilities, you can see what those combo points do. So you can see every one has a different ability. And for penetrating shot, it's all about damage and lucky hit. So if you wait for 3 points, you get 3,000 damage extra and 30% extra lucky hit. Now, this is like an archer assassin, right? So what you do is you go puncture, puncture, puncture with your attack speed up. That's faster. So you go, and then you build for the burst. So you conceal, you go invisible, and then you imbue your weapon with either poison or shadow, and then you burst. And then when you hit them with increased damage, vuln, crit, lucky hit, and everything can just land at once, and it spreads with your trickster, and it spreads to the whole room, and then shadow, they blow up and that spreads. And that first hit can just be, if everything pops, like if you tick all the boxes, that can just be a one shot in the room. So that's the build. If everything works, it's so strong. And as your gear gets better, you get more lucky hit, you get more crit. This build only gets stronger. Okay, onto the construct abilities. The construct is the construct. We can't change it. We're stuck with it. So let's make the most of it. And probably the most we can do with it is Flash of Adrenaline. This is pretty good on this build. So this is like a buff to you, because so the pet doesn't scale that well, especially while leveling. If you have 2 attack abilities on here while leveling, it's pretty tragic, to be honest. So I would just go with this if you can get it. So Flash of Adrenaline administers a quick flash of adrenaline into the player, increasing damage dealt by 1% for 8 seconds. So the more you level it up, the higher the percent. So it's just a damage bonus. And you can see, like, as the ranks go up, that damage bonus just gets stronger. So then the way I would run this would be to give it Fortify support. So when it uses its ability, you gain Fortify. And then I would go for tactical support, so decrease the cooldown of this skill. And then I go for this, increase the duration. So the way that would work is you would just have a almost perfect uptime on adrenaline. So you'd have constant damage increase. Unfortunately, Blizzard don't like us as players, so we have to refarm these on our characters. So I don't even have them, even though I've already got a character that's further than this, which is fun. On the right side, I would probably just take some sort of attack so we can get the boosters from the attack. So I gone with Focus Fire, so it deals a bit of damage over time. Arcing, so it hits more than one enemy. Breaking, so it breaks barriers. 30% chance to make enemies vulnerable. That's really important with this build. And then I've just got Devastation, gains crit strike bonus. There's probably better ways to build this out, and there's probably better stones to get, but it just takes so long to get these. I wouldn't worry about it until an end game build. If you can get Flash of Adrenaline and the things that go along with it, that's a nice boost. But yeah, I'll put the perfect ones down in the link below, but yeah, don't worry too much while leveling about this at all. Okay, so onto the Paragon Board. This is a leveling build, so I wouldn't stress the Paragon Board. Here's what I would run. Keep it simple. I would go down the right side for the damage. Is that 20% damage? I'd go get the glyph in the middle. And then for the glyph, I'd take something simple like Exploit, makes enemies vulnerable, increases vulnerable damage. You could also take Efficacy. Where's Efficacy? Efficacy. Imbuement skills have increased potency. Or you could take Infusion. Casting Imbuement reduces the active cooldown of another Imbuement. Something like that. And then run it down the left side for more damage until you get to the end. Okay, so on the board, there's probably 2 I would take on this build. Eldritch Bounty is pretty good. When you attack with an imbued skill, you gain maximum resistance and increased damage for that imbued element for 9 seconds. And so is Cunning Stratagem. Your non-damage combo point bonuses are increased by 33% when you spend 3 combo points, because there's a lot of nice stuff in here. Increased core damage, increased core damage, increased core damage, increased basic damage. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm probably just going to go for Eldritch Bounty in this though. And I would slap it here so that we get the Eldritch Bounty first. I'd attach that. I'd run it straight along to Eldritch Bounty. This is when you attack imbued skill, you gain 3% max resistant and 20% increased damage for that imbuement element for 9 seconds. This is really, really nice. It's a nice damage boost. Then I would grab this imbued skill damage. I'd grab this cluster as well. Imbued skill damage, imbued skill damage, imbued skill damage. And I would run all the way along to the glyph. So I would just run it up the top, grab this in the middle here, imbued skill cooldown reduction, and get to the glyph. There's also imbued skill damage at the top here. I'll put all this on the build guide down below. I'll lay it out. But I'm only going to go to 70 because that's probably where I would stop using. I would move to an end game build. So yeah, that's how I'd run it. Very simple. Just take the damage where you can take the damage. Focus on your vulnerable, your crits, your imbuement damage. Anything marksman, anything imbuement. Yeah, keep it fairly simple. But yeah, this is just a leveling build. I didn't even used to include Paragon boards on leveling builds because I don't think you should stress about it. As soon as you start getting your Paragon boards, you're coming into the end of the leveling experience. But yeah, this is a simple, straightforward start. But yeah, that's it, and that's pretty much the video, man. I think we're done. I think that's it. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you like the build. It's very, very, very fun. There's a great feeling about jumping into a room, doing your little setup, and then hitting with the shadow burst and everything dying, including the elites. It feels extremely satisfying. But yeah, that's the video. If you like these builds, subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Have you tried something similar? Have you tried penetrating shot builds? Any different maybe aspects you try in the codex for a leveling build? And if you have tried this sort of build, how would you run it endgame? I'm curious. But yeah, that's it for the video. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one.